In the heart of the galaxy, there was a place where the most powerful beings gathered. It was called the Galactic Council. The chamber was enormous, made of crystal and stone that seemed to glow with ancient power. Delegates from hundreds of alien species sat in their seats, each one representing empires that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. They were proud. They were wise. Or so they believed. On this particular day, the chamber buzzed with noise. Aliens whispered to each other, their voices filling the air with a strange mix of languages and sounds. Some had scales, others had fur. Some floated in the air while others stood on multiple legs. But they all had one thing in common. They all believed they were superior. In the center of the chamber stood a platform. And on that platform stood a human. He was alone. His suit was simple, dark blue with no decorations. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at him. Some looked curious. Others looked amused. A few looked annoyed that a human was even allowed to speak. The human took a breath and began to speak. "Members of the Galactic Council," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I stand before you today with a simple message. We do not want war." Some aliens chuckled. Others leaned back in their seats, rolling their eyes. The human continued, his voice growing heavier with each word. "But if you push us, if you provoke us, if you try to take from us what is ours, you will regret it. Humanity will not kneel. Humanity will not break." The chamber erupted with noise. Delegates laughed openly now. One alien, tall and covered in purple scales, turned to his neighbor and said loudly enough for others to hear, "Listen to this. The humans think they can threaten us." Another delegate, a creature that looked like living stone, waved a massive hand dismissively. "They are children. Young and foolish. What can Earth do against empires that have existed since before their sun was born?" But not everyone laughed. In the far corner of the chamber, a small group of delegates sat in silence. Their eyes were fixed on the human. They had fought humans before in small border conflicts. They had studied Earth's history. And they knew something the others did not. Humans were dangerous. The council speaker, an ancient being whose skin truly did look like gray stone, leaned forward on his throne. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Human delegate, are you threatening the Galactic Council?" The human shook his head slowly. His expression did not change. "No," he said. "I am warning you. Do not provoke us. Leave us in peace." The words echoed through the chamber. And then came the laughter again. Deep, mocking laughter that bounced off the crystal walls. Aliens whispered to each other, calling humans dramatic, calling them foolish, calling them children who did not understand how the galaxy worked. One delegate stood up, his voice loud and sharp. "Humans are weak. They have only been in space for a few hundred years. What can they possibly do to us?" But the human on the platform did not respond to the insults. He simply stood there waiting. His eyes scanned the room, looking at each delegate one by one. And in that moment, a few aliens felt something strange. A chill ran down their spines, though they could not explain why. The council speaker raised his hand and the chamber fell quiet. "The human has spoken," he said. "Does anyone have anything else to say?" The human delegate nodded once. He took a step forward and his voice rang out one final time. "You think we are weak," he said, his tone calm but carrying a weight that made the air feel heavy. "You think we are small. You think we are nothing. But remember this, members of the council. Humans do not forget. Humans do not forgive. And when the day comes when you finally understand what we truly are, it will be too late." Silence fell over the chamber. Not a single voice spoke. Not a single laugh was heard. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared at the human, trying to understand what they had just heard. A few felt that strange chill again, deeper this time. The human turned and walked away from the platform. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He did not look back. He did not say another word. He simply left. After the doors closed behind him, the chamber exploded with noise. Arguments erupted from every corner. Some shouted that Earth was a threat that must be dealt with immediately. Others said the human was bluffing, that his words meant nothing. The debate went on for hours, voices rising and falling like waves. But in the end, the decision was made. The warnings would be ignored. Far across the stars, alien warships began to gather at the edges of human space. Their commanders smiled with confidence. They spoke of conquest, of glory, of resources. They believed Earth would surrender within weeks. They believed the Galactic Council would thank them for putting the noisy humans in their place. But deep in the minds of a few old council members, doubt remained. One of them remembered something he had read about Earth's history. He remembered tales of humans facing impossible odds and still surviving. He remembered cities burned to ashes that were rebuilt even stronger. He tried to speak up, tried to remind the others. But his voice was drowned out by the noise of arrogance and pride. And so, the fate of the galaxy was sealed. On Earth, far from the Council's grand chamber, humans prepared quietly. They did not shout. They did not make threats. They simply waited. And when the time came, the galaxy would finally understand the meaning of those words. Do not provoke us. The first attacks came like shadows in the night. Alien warships moved silently through the darkness of space, slipping past distant stars toward human territory. Their commanders sat in their command chairs, confident and proud. They had planned everything perfectly. Or so they thought. The target was simple. Small human colonies on the outer edges of Earth's territory. Worlds far from home with few defenses and small populations. To the alien coalition, these were easy prizes. Weak targets that would fall quickly. They will surrender without much fight, one commander said to his crew. Humans are soft. They will cry and beg and then they will kneel. His officers nodded in agreement. They had heard the stories. Earth was young. Humanity was fragile. This would be over in days. The first colony to fall was called Holstrom. It was a farming world, peaceful and green, with small cities scattered across rolling hills. The people there lived simple lives. They grew crops, raised families, and looked up at the stars with hope. Then the sky turned dark. Alien warships broke through the atmosphere like falling meteors. Their weapons lit up the sky with terrible fire. Buildings exploded. Fields burned. The people of Holstrom screamed and ran, but there was nowhere to hide. The colony had defense ships, small and old, but they launched anyway. Human pilots flew straight at the alien armada, firing everything they had. Ground troops set up positions in the streets. Farmers grabbed rifles and stood beside soldiers. Even children helped, carrying supplies through the smoke and flames. But it was not enough. The alien fleet was too strong. Too many ships. Too many weapons. One by one, the human defense ships were shot down. The ground positions were overrun. Within 3 days, Holstrom had fallen. The survivors were chained and dragged into the streets. The aliens paraded them like trophies, recording everything to send back to the Galactic Council. See, the coalition leader announced proudly. The human frontier is ours. They are too weak to resist us. When the message reached the Galactic Council chamber, applause erupted. Delegates stood and cheered. Some laughed and congratulated the coalition forces. Others nodded with satisfaction. Finally, one alien lord said with a smile, "The humans understand their place now." The council speaker nodded slowly. Perhaps this will teach them respect. But not everyone joined the celebration. In the corner of the chamber, a few delegates sat in silence. Their faces were troubled. They had read the full battle reports, not just the victory announcements. And they had seen something that worried them deeply. Despite being completely outnumbered, the humans of Holstrom had fought with incredible fury. They did not retreat when defeat was certain. They did not surrender when their weapons broke. They fought until the very last moment, until they were physically dragged away in chains. That was not normal. That was not how most species behaved. That kind of defiance was dangerous. But their concerns were ignored. The coalition was too excited by their victory. They wanted more. More colonies were attacked. More settlements were burned. And each time the pattern repeated. Humans fought back with everything they had. Farmers who had never held a gun before picked up rifles and fired at alien soldiers. Children ran through burning streets, carrying messages between fighters. Pilots with damaged ships deliberately crashed into enemy cruisers, taking the aliens down with them. The aliens called it foolishness. They laughed at what they saw as wasted lives. But among the lower ranks of the alien soldiers, whispers began to spread. Humans are different, one soldier said to his friend in a quiet moment. They do not fight like others. Even when they know they will lose, they keep fighting. I saw a human yesterday, another whispered. He was wounded, bleeding, surrounded by 10 of us. But he still charged forward with a knife. A knife. Against our plasma rifles. Fear began to creep into the hearts of those who fought on the front lines. But their commanders dismissed these concerns. They saw only the numbers. Only the victories. Only the growing list of conquered worlds. Back in the Galactic Council, the human delegate returned one final time. But this time his face was different. Harder. Colder. His eyes seemed to burn with something the aliens could not quite understand. He stood on the same platform as before and spoke in a voice sharp as broken glass. "You let this happen," he said, looking at each delegate. "You ignored our warning. You think we are weak. You think we are beaten. But you will see the truth soon. Very soon." The chamber erupted with mocking voices. One alien lord, the same one who had laughed before, stood up and sneered loudly. "The truth is already clear, human. Humanity is nothing. You have already lost." The human delegate's eyes fixed on him for a long, cold moment. Then, without another word, the human turned and walked away. He did not respond to the insults. He did not argue. He simply left. That silence was somehow worse than any threat. It settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Even those who had mocked him felt uneasy, though they did not understand why. Days passed. Then weeks. And something strange began to happen. Earth went completely silent. No more messages came from the human homeworld. No more complaints to the council. No desperate pleas for peace. Human ambassadors stopped appearing at diplomatic meetings. Trade ships from Earth disappeared from the common space routes. Human borders sealed shut. It was as if humanity had stepped back into the shadows, watching, waiting. The coalition told themselves this was fear. They convinced their people that humanity had finally accepted defeat. That Earth was too shocked, too broken to fight back anymore. "They are hiding like frightened animals," the coalition leaders announced proudly. "Soon we will march on Earth itself and this war will be over." But deep down some commanders felt something else. Something cold and dark growing in their chests. Dread. Strange reports began arriving from the frontier. Alien patrol ships that entered human space never returned. Small fleets that pushed too deep found only wreckage drifting in the darkness. Ships broken apart by weapons no one could identify. Some looked melted from the inside. Others were sliced cleanly in half. And always there were no survivors. No witnesses. Just silence. At first, the coalition claimed these were accidents. They said humans were destroying their own damaged ships to make the aliens afraid. But the whispers among soldiers grew louder. Those who had fought humans before told old stories to the new recruits. Stories of a species that never gave up. Stories of a species that always found a way to strike back. The silence of humanity was beginning to feel less like surrender and more like a trap. And somewhere far away on Earth, in secret shipyards hidden from the galaxy's eyes, something was being built. Something massive. Something terrible. Humanity had not forgotten. Humanity had not forgiven. Humanity was preparing. The galaxy had never experienced silence like this before. After the raids on human colonies, after the burned cities and captured prisoners, the other species expected humanity to react. They expected angry messages, desperate pleas to the council, maybe even threats of revenge. That was how things worked. That was how weaker species always behaved when stronger empires pushed them. But humanity did nothing. No messages came from Earth. No human ambassadors appeared in the council chambers. No trade convoys left human space. It was as if an entire civilization had simply vanished into the darkness. Human borders, once open to peaceful trade, were now sealed completely. Ships that tried to approach were met with automated warnings. "Turn back. This is your only warning." Those who ignored the warnings never reported what happened next. They simply disappeared. The coalition leaders gathered in their war rooms, studying maps of human territory. They pointed at Earth, at the core worlds, at the silent colonies. They smiled and told each other that this silence meant victory. "They are afraid," one commander said confidently. "They know they cannot win. They are hiding and hoping we will leave them alone." His officers agreed. They raised their glasses and toasted to their success. But outside those war rooms, among the common soldiers, the mood was different. Very different. Fear spread like a disease through the lower ranks. Patrol ships sent into human space stopped returning. At first it was 1 or 2 ships. Then 5. Then 10. Command sent out search parties to find them. Those search parties also vanished. Finally they found wreckage. But what they saw made no sense. One cruiser was found split perfectly in half, as if cut by a giant blade. The edges were smooth, melted. Another ship was discovered with holes burned completely through its hull. The holes went straight through armor that was supposed to be indestructible. Inside everything was gone. No crew. No equipment. Just empty, scorched metal. "What weapon does this?" one engineer asked, his voice shaking as he examined the wreckage. "We have never seen anything like this before." No one had an answer. The coalition tried to keep these discoveries secret. They did not want panic spreading through their forces. Official reports claimed the ships had suffered mechanical failures. Accidents in space. Nothing to worry about. But soldiers talk. They always talk. And the truth spread faster than any official message. The humans have something new, soldiers whispered to each other in the darkness of their barracks. Something we have never seen before. Something terrible. I heard an entire fleet of 30 ships entered human space last week, another soldier said, his voice low. None of them came back. Not one. No distress calls. No emergency signals. Just, gone. Ghost fleets, someone whispered. That is what they are calling them. Ships that enter human territory become ghosts. On the colony of Aridan, alien soldiers had set up a military base. They celebrated their victory over the humans, drinking and laughing in the streets. Human prisoners watched them from behind bars, silent and still. That night, something strange appeared in the sky. A brief flash of light like a shooting star. But it was not a star. It was a signal. A human transmission, short and cold, broadcast across every frequency. Remember this. Just 2 words. Nothing more. The alien soldiers laughed when they heard it. Empty threats from a broken species, their commander said. Ignore it. 3 hours later, the barracks exploded. Massive explosions ripped through the military base, one after another. Buildings collapsed. Ammunition depots went up in flames. Fire spread through the streets. Hundreds of alien soldiers died in minutes. The survivors stumbled through the smoke and chaos, trying to understand what happened. They searched for bombs, for sabotage, for any explanation. But they found nothing. No evidence of how the humans did it. No footprints. No trace. It was as if invisible hands had reached down from the sky and struck them. The next morning, the human prisoners were gone. Their cells were empty. The locks were still closed, but the prisoners had vanished like smoke. News of the attack reached the Galactic Council quickly. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates demanded that the coalition stop pushing deeper into human space. They warned that the silence was not weakness. It was something else. Something dangerous. This is not normal behavior, one elder delegate said, his voice filled with concern. When species are defeated, they make noise. They cry for help. They beg for mercy. But humans? Humans have gone completely quiet. That should terrify you. But other delegates shouted him down. We cannot show weakness. The humans are already beaten. This is just their last desperate acts. We must push forward. The debate went on for hours, voices rising and falling. But in the end, nothing changed. The coalition would continue. Pride and arrogance won again. Meanwhile, on Earth, deep beneath the surface, vast factories worked without stopping. Enormous shipyards, hidden from any scanner, built ships in the darkness. Scientists worked day and night on weapons that bent the rules of physics. New armor. New engines. New ways to fight. But no announcements were made. No threats were given. No warnings were issued. Humanity remained absolutely silent. And that silence became sharper than any weapon. It cut deeper than any blade. It spread fear faster than any army. The coalition pushed deeper into human territory, hungry for more victories. They took more worlds. They captured more colonies. But something was wrong. Every victory felt hollow. Every conquered world felt like a trap waiting to spring. Human colonies did not fight in straight battles anymore. They used tricks, ambushes, traps hidden in the darkness. A single human cargo ship would lead entire fleets into minefields. Small fighters would disappear into asteroid belts, then strike from behind when least expected. Even when colonies were captured, the humans left nothing useful behind. Water supplies were poisoned. Machines were broken. Tunnels were collapsed. Every building was booby-trapped. Nothing was surrendered whole. One coalition commander wrote in his private report, words that would later become famous. It is like fighting shadows. We win every battle. We take every objective. But somehow it feels like we are losing the war. His superiors ignored the report. They only cared about the numbers. About the list of conquered worlds. About maintaining their pride. Then came the disappearances that could not be ignored. An entire fleet, 47 ships strong, entered human space on a routine patrol. It was a powerful force, well-armed and experienced. They sent regular reports as they moved deeper into the territory. Then suddenly silence. No distress call. No battle reports. No emergency signals. Just complete, absolute silence. Search and rescue missions were sent. They found nothing. No wreckage. No debris. No sign that the fleet had ever existed. 47 ships and over 15,000 soldiers had simply vanished into the void. The coalition tried to hide the truth. But rumors spread like wildfire. Soldiers spoke of ghost fleets. Civilians whispered about human monsters lurking in the darkness. Even in the council chambers, delegates grew nervous whenever someone mentioned the missing fleets. Finally, one brave delegate stood up in the council and said what everyone was thinking, but no one dared to speak aloud. "This is not surrender," he said, his voice echoing through the silent chamber. "This is preparation. Humanity is preparing for something. Something big. And we should be afraid." But by then it was already too late. In the stillness of space, hidden behind moons and in the shadows of dead planets, massive human warships waited. Their engines were cold. Their weapons were silent. But they were ready. On Earth, final strategies were being written. Strategies that would break empires. Strategies that would change the galaxy forever. And in the heart of every human, from the oldest elder to the youngest child, a quiet fury burned, growing brighter with each passing day. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had mistaken silence for fear. They had mistaken patience for weakness. Soon, very soon, they would understand the truth. Humanity was not quiet because it was broken. Humanity was quiet because it was ready. The storm was coming. For 3 months, humanity had been silent. 3 months of nothing but whispers and shadows. 3 months of fear growing in the hearts of alien soldiers. But the coalition leaders refused to see the danger. They believed their own lies. They believed humanity was defeated. They were about to learn how wrong they were. At the edge of a quiet star system, far from any major worlds, a coalition fleet moved through space. 50 warships, strong and confident. Their mission was simple. Push deeper into human territory, capture another colony, and prove once more that humanity was weak. The commanders joked with each other over their communication channels. They laughed about Earth's silence. They made bets on how quickly the humans would surrender this time. "Maybe they will give up before we even land," one captain said with a laugh. "They know they cannot win." His crew joined in the laughter. The mood was light, relaxed. They had done this before. It would be easy. They were approaching a small moon, barren and lifeless. Sensors showed nothing unusual, just rock and dust. The fleet began to pass by, not even paying attention to it. Then the shadows moved. At first, it looked like an asteroid drifting in space. A large chunk of rock reflecting starlight. But then something changed. Blue fire erupted from massive engines hidden in the darkness. The rock was not a rock at all. From behind the dark side of the moon, something emerged. Something enormous. Something that should not exist. A warship. But not like any warship the galaxy had ever seen. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest coalition cruiser. Its hull was black, angular, and sharp, covered in armor that seemed to drink in the light of the stars. Along its surface, lines of blue energy glowed like veins of living fire. The ship moved with impossible grace for something so huge. The alien fleet froze. For a moment no one spoke. No one moved. They simply stared at the monster that had appeared before them. Then alarms started screaming. "Battle stations," the fleet commander shouted. "All ships target that vessel. Fire everything." The coalition fleet opened fire. 50 warships unleashed their weapons at once. Missiles streaked through the void. Energy beams cut across space. Plasma bolts exploded against the human ship in waves of fire and light. The darkness lit up like a sun. The barrage was incredible. Enough firepower to destroy a small planet. The aliens watched their weapons hit the human ship again and again and again. But the human ship did not slow down. It did not turn away. The attack struck its armor like rain against solid stone. The black hull absorbed the fire, glowing briefly where weapons hit, then returning to darkness. It did not even flinch. "Impossible," the fleet commander whispered, his face pale. "Nothing can withstand that much fire. Nothing." Then humanity answered. The human warship's weapons came alive. A single broadside erupted from its hull. Brilliant lances of pure energy tore across space, each one brighter than a star. They cut through the alien ships like knives through paper. One cruiser was hit directly in the center. It split in half, both pieces spinning away into the void, trailing fire and debris. Another ship exploded in a ball of white flame. A third simply ceased to exist, vaporized completely. In less than 1 minute, 10 coalition ships were gone. The alien fleet panicked. Ships scattered in every direction trying to escape. Commanders screamed orders that no one followed. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos. But the human ship was faster. Much faster. It moved through space like a predator chasing prey. Its weapons fired with terrible precision. Every shot found a target. Every blast destroyed a ship. The aliens tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless. They tried to run, but they were too slow. Within 10 minutes, the battle was over. 50 ships had entered that star system. Only wreckage remained. Twisted metal drifting in the darkness. No survivors. No escape pods. Nothing. And the human warship simply turned and disappeared back into the shadows, its engines fading to silence. News of the massacre spread across the galaxy like wildfire. At first, the coalition tried to deny it. They claimed the reports were exaggerated. They said it was impossible. But then more reports came in. Many more. Alien fleets were vanishing across a dozen star systems. Outposts were found destroyed, reduced to rubble and ash. Human warships were appearing without warning, striking hard, then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The ships were all different sizes, but they all had the same black armor, the same glowing energy lines, the same terrifying weapons. Some were as large as the first one. Others were smaller, faster, designed for quick strikes. But they were all unstoppable. In the Galactic Council chamber, the mood had completely changed. The laughter was gone. The smug confidence was gone. The casual arrogance was gone. In their place sat cold, deep fear. Delegates whispered to each other with trembling voices. They spoke about the human fleet, about weapons that could not be stopped, about armor that could not be broken. The warnings they had ignored months ago now echoed in their minds, louder than thunder. Do not provoke us. But the coalition leaders, proud and stubborn, refused to admit defeat. They gathered in their war rooms and made a desperate decision. If individual fleets could not stop the humans, they would use overwhelming numbers. They sent out a call across the galaxy. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. They would gather the largest armada the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. Hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters, millions of soldiers. They would crush humanity once and for all. They would show these upstart humans that numbers always win in the end. The armada gathered at a staging point just outside human space. It was a magnificent sight. Ships from a dozen different empires, all flying under one banner. Massive carriers, heavy cruisers, battle stations. The collected military might of half the galaxy. The commanders stood on their bridges, looking at the fleet displays with satisfaction. This was power. This was strength. No enemy could stand against this. Prepare to enter human space, the Supreme Commander ordered. We will march straight to Earth itself. And when we arrive, they will surrender or they will burn. Cheers erupted across the communication channels. Soldiers raised their weapons in triumph. Pilots revved their engines. This was it. The final battle. The end of the war. The armada moved forward, crossing into human territory. Hundreds of ships advancing together, their weapons ready, their shields raised, their courage high. They entered human space with pride and confidence. Banners of war flew from their ships. Victory songs played over their speakers. They expected resistance. They expected a great battle. Instead they found silence. No human fleets appeared to meet them. No defense stations opened fire. No warnings were given. Just empty space, dark and quiet, stretching out before them. Where are they? One commander asked, confused. Where are the humans? Maybe they ran, another said with a laugh. Maybe they finally realized they cannot win. But a few commanders felt something different. Something cold creeping up their spines. This felt wrong. This felt like a trap. And they were right. The armada pushed deeper, moving into a large asteroid field. It was the perfect place for an ambush, but sensors showed nothing. No ships. No weapons. No heat signatures. Just silence. Then all at once the darkness came alive. From hidden positions among the asteroids, from behind dead planets, from cloaked stations invisible to sensors, humanity struck. Thousands of guided missiles launched simultaneously, filling space with streaks of fire. They slammed into the alien armada before the ships could even react. Explosions rippled through the fleet like waves. And then the human warships appeared. They emerged from the void itself, dozens of them, their black hulls gleaming with deadly purpose. They moved with incredible speed, weaving through the enemy formations like dancers. Their weapons fired without stopping, each shot precise and devastating. The coalition fleet tried to fight back. Commanders screamed orders. Ships tried to form defensive lines. But it was useless. The humans gave them no chance. Every formation the aliens tried to create collapsed under relentless fire. Entire wings of ships vanished in brilliant explosions. Carriers broke apart. Cruisers spun helplessly through space, trailing fire. The Supreme Commander watched in horror as his magnificent armada was torn apart before his eyes. "Retreat," he finally screamed. "All ships retreat. Get out of here." But there was no retreat. The humans had surrounded them, trapped them. And now they were finishing what they started. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the greatest armada the galaxy had seen in centuries was nothing but wreckage drifting in the dark. Across the galaxy, people watched the reports in stunned silence. Humanity had just crushed the invincible fleet. A species the galaxy had mocked, had dismissed as weak and fragile, had shattered the pride of ancient empires. And humanity did not stop. The silence was over. The storm had been unleashed. Now came the thunder. The news spread faster than light itself. The greatest armada in galactic history, the pride of a dozen empires, had been destroyed. Hundreds of ships reduced to floating wreckage. Thousands of soldiers lost in the darkness of space. And humanity had done it in just 6 hours. The galaxy was in shock. Species that had ruled the stars for millennia sat frozen in disbelief. Leaders who had mocked Earth now whispered in fear. The impossible had happened. The humans, the young and fragile humans, had won. But the coalition refused to accept it. Their pride was too great. Their arrogance too deep. They could not, would not, admit that humans were stronger. In emergency meetings across coalition space, leaders gathered. They shouted at each other, blaming everyone but themselves. Some wanted to sue for peace immediately. Others demanded revenge. "This was a trick," one emperor declared, slamming his fist on the table. "They caught us by surprise. In a fair fight we would crush them." "Then let us give them a fair fight," another leader said, his eyes burning with anger. "Let us gather every ship we have, every weapon, every soldier. We will not hide. We will not use tactics. We will meet them head-on and show them what true power looks like." It was madness. Pure, blind madness. But pride makes people do mad things. The call went out across every coalition world. Every remaining ship was to gather at the border of human space. Every reserve was called up. Every defense fleet was stripped from their home worlds. They would create a wall of steel and fire that nothing could pass through. This time there would be no ambush. No tricks. Just raw power against raw power. Within 2 weeks, the second Great Armada was assembled. It was even larger than the first. Over 800 warships. Thousands of fighters. Weapons that could burn entire planets. It stretched across space like a metal ocean. The coalition commanders stood on their bridges, looking at the display screens showing their massive fleet. They felt their confidence returning. This was more like it. This was true strength. "Let the humans come," the Supreme Commander said, his voice filled with pride. "Let them see what happens when they face the full might of the coalition. They will break. They will beg for mercy. And this time we will give them none." The fleet moved forward together, engines blazing. They entered human space with all sensors active, all weapons ready. They were not hiding. They were not sneaking. They were announcing their presence loudly, daring humanity to face them. And humanity answered. But not how the coalition expected. Instead of another ambush, instead of hiding in shadows, the human fleet appeared directly in front of them. Out in the open. Waiting. There were maybe 200 human ships. They hung in space, their black hulls reflecting the distant stars, their blue energy lines glowing steadily. They looked small compared to the coalition armada. Outnumbered 4-1. The coalition commanders smiled. Finally a fair fight. Finally they would see humanity crushed in honest battle. "All ships," the Supreme Commander ordered, his voice calm and confident. "Forward formation. Prepare to engage. Today we end this war." The massive coalition fleet advanced slowly, deliberately. Their formation was perfect. Their shields were at maximum. Every weapon was charged and ready. They approached the human fleet like a tsunami of metal and fire. The humans did not move. They simply waited, silent and still. The distance closed. 5,000 kilometers. 4,000. 3,000. The coalition fleet prepared to fire. Then the humans moved. What happened next would be talked about for generations. It would be studied in military academies across the galaxy. It would become legend. The human ships exploded forward with impossible speed. Not running away but charging straight at the coalition fleet. They moved so fast they became blurs on the sensors. And as they moved they fired. But these were not the same weapons as before. These were different. No. Beams of pure white energy lanced out from the human ships. But instead of hitting one target, each beam split into dozens of smaller beams, like branches of lightning. Each smaller beam found a different ship. One shot became 20. 20 became 400. The coalition's front line simply ceased to exist. Dozens of ships exploded simultaneously, consumed by white fire. The perfect formation shattered in seconds. Evasive action, commanders screamed. Break formation. Return fire. But the human ships were everywhere. They moved through the coalition fleet like sharks through a school of fish. They were faster, more agile, impossible to track. Their weapons never stopped firing. Every shot found a target. Every target was destroyed. The coalition tried to surround them. Tried to use their numbers to overwhelm the humans. But it was like trying to catch smoke with your hands. The human ships danced through space, always one step ahead, always out of reach. And then more human ships arrived. From above and below, from the sides, from behind, dozens more black warships appeared. The coalition realized too late that the first 200 ships had been bait, a trap, and they had flown straight into it. Now the humans had them surrounded. The battle turned into a massacre. Coalition ships fired wildly in every direction, hitting each other as often as they hit human ships. Commanders lost control of their fleets. Ships collided trying to escape. Panic spread like fire. One young coalition officer, watching his ship's sensors, saw something that made his blood run cold. Every human ship was targeting multiple enemies at once. Their computer systems were so advanced, their coordination so perfect, that they fought as if they were one single organism with 200 bodies. They are not individual ships, he whispered to himself. They are one mind. One weapon. The coalition supreme commander watched his fleet being torn apart around him. He had started the day with 800 ships. Now, barely 2 hours into the battle, he had less than 400. And the humans had lost maybe 10. 10 ships. Out of 200. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Full retreat, he finally ordered, his voice breaking. All ships, emergency jump. Get out of here now. But jumping to faster than light speed takes time. Time to charge the engines. Time to calculate coordinates. Time the humans did not give them. As ships tried to flee, human fighters swooped in, targeting their engines. Disabling them. Leaving them floating helplessly in space. The coalition had wanted a fair fight. Now they were getting it. And they were losing badly. By the time the battle ended, over 600 coalition ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships that managed to escape did so only because the humans let them go. Let them run home and tell everyone what they had seen. The Second Great Armada was broken. Shattered. Destroyed. And this time there were survivors. Thousands of them floating in escape pods among the wreckage. The coalition expected the humans to kill them. Or leave them to die in space. That was how war worked. But the humans did neither. Human ships moved through the debris field, collecting escape pods. Rescuing survivors. They took the coalition soldiers prisoner, treated their wounds, gave them food and water. They were not cruel. Not savage. Just efficient. Professional. One coalition soldier, sitting in the hold of a human ship after being rescued, looked at his human guard with confusion. "Why did you save us?" he asked. "We tried to kill you. We destroyed your colonies." The human guard looked at him with cold, calm eyes. "Because we are not monsters," she said simply. "We do not kill those who cannot fight back. But make no mistake. This mercy is more than your people gave ours." The rescued prisoners were sent back to coalition space in automated ships. When they arrived home, they told everyone what they had witnessed. They spoke of human ships that moved like ghosts. Weapons that defied understanding. A fleet that fought with one mind. But most importantly, they told the truth that the coalition leaders had refused to accept. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not fragile. Humanity had been holding back, preparing, waiting. And now that they had been pushed too far, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. The coalition's spirit broke that day. 2 great armadas destroyed. Their strongest warriors defeated. Their pride shattered into dust. And still, humanity advanced. Human fleets spread across coalition space like a dark tide. But they did not destroy everything in their path. They were precise. Calculated. They targeted military bases, weapons factories, command centers. They avoided civilian populations when possible. This was not mindless destruction. This was justice. Cold, exact, and unstoppable. One by one, coalition strongholds fell. Border worlds surrendered without firing a shot. Fortress stations went dark as their defenders fled. Entire systems raised white flags before human ships even entered orbit. The galaxy watched in awe and terror. The species that had been laughed at, mocked, dismissed as children, was now dictating terms to ancient empires. And through it all, humanity remained silent. No boasts, no threats, no grand speeches. Just action. Swift, decisive, and overwhelming. The message was clear. Humanity had given one warning. Only one. The galaxy had ignored it. Now they would pay the price. The great battles were over. The coalition was broken. But humanity was not finished. Now came the reckoning. After the second great armada fell, the galaxy held its breath. The silence was different now. Not the silence of preparation, but the silence of fear. Deep, cold fear that settled into the hearts of billions. News traveled across every star system, every colony, every homeworld. The coalition, the alliance of ancient empires that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, was broken. Their fleets were destroyed. Their pride was shattered. Their soldiers either dead or captured. And humanity was still advancing. But something was different about this advance. The humans were not moving like conquerors seeking glory. They were not celebrating their victories. They were not making grand declarations of dominance. They moved with cold, precise purpose. Like surgeons removing a disease. Every action was calculated. Every target was chosen with care. Human fleets appeared above worlds that had supported the coalition attacks. But they did not rain fire on cities. They did not bomb civilians. Instead, they broadcast a simple message. Surrender your military forces. Hand over those responsible for attacks on human colonies. Do this, and your people will not be harmed. Some worlds surrendered immediately. Their leaders, seeing what had happened to the great armadas, knew resistance was suicide. They opened their shipyards and military bases. They handed over their commanders. They begged for mercy. And humanity showed mercy. To those who surrendered peacefully, human forces were professional. Firm but not cruel. They took what they needed and moved on. No massacres. No revenge killings. Just cold efficiency. But not all worlds surrendered peacefully. Some coalition leaders, blinded by pride even in defeat, refused to believe they had lost. They fortified their worlds. They called their people to arms. They swore they would fight to the last breath. Humanity obliged them. On the world of Kratos, a heavily fortified military planet, the local commander refused to surrender. He had 3 million soldiers, hundreds of defense stations, and weapons powerful enough to crack a moon. He broadcast his defiance across the galaxy. Let the humans come, he declared. We will show them what real warriors look like. We will teach them that some battles cannot be won with tricks and technology. 3 days later, human ships appeared in orbit. Not hundreds. Just 12. 12 black warships hanging silently in space. The commander of Kratos laughed. 12 ships. They insult us with so few? He ordered his forces to open fire. Every weapon on the planet fired at once. The sky lit up with thousands of missiles and energy beams. Enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. But the 12 human ships did not fall. Their shields absorbed the attacks like water absorbing drops of rain. And then they fired back. What happened next took less than an hour. The human ships targeted every military installation with surgical precision. Defense stations exploded. Weapon factories crumbled. Military bases were reduced to rubble. The ships moved through their targets like a checklist, destroying each one completely before moving to the next. The commander of Kratos watched in horror as his unbeatable fortress planet was systematically dismantled. When it was over, his military was gone. Completely gone. But the cities were untouched. The civilians were unharmed. Only the weapons, only the soldiers, only the machines of war had been destroyed. A message came from the human fleet. The voice was calm, cold, final. You were given a choice. You chose war. Your military is now gone. Surrender now or we will return. And next time we will not be as gentle. The commander of Kratos surrendered within the hour. News of what happened spread quickly. Other defiant worlds suddenly became very quiet. Very cooperative. The message was clear. Humanity could destroy you completely if they wanted. But they would give you one chance. One opportunity to surrender with dignity. It was your choice what happened next. But there were some worlds that received no offers of surrender. No chances for peace. These were special targets. Places that had committed unforgivable crimes. The first was Holstrom. The colony where it all began. Where the coalition had first attacked. Where human civilians had been chained and paraded as prisoners. Where children had been forced to watch their parents executed. Humanity remembered. The human fleet that arrived at Holstrom was different. Larger. More heavily armed. And led by ships carrying survivors from Earth, people who had lost family in the coalition attacks. The alien occupation forces on Holstrom tried to use the human prisoners as shields. They threatened to execute them if the human fleet attacked. They thought this would make humanity hesitate. They were wrong. Human special forces, soldiers wearing armor that made them nearly invisible, landed on the planet in the middle of the night. They moved through the alien bases like shadows. Silent, precise, deadly. By morning, every alien soldier on Holstrom was either dead or captured. The human prisoners were free. And carved into the ruins of the alien command center, in letters 10 meters tall, was a message. You were warned. The freed prisoners were taken back to Earth. The alien occupiers were put on trial for war crimes. The trials were public. Fair. But the evidence was overwhelming. Most were sentenced to life in prison. Some were executed. Justice was served. Cold, exact, and final. But the world that received the harshest judgment was Tauren Prime. The capital world of the largest coalition empire. The planet where the Emperor himself had ordered the attacks on human colonies. Where he had laughed at Earth's warnings. Where he had promised to make humanity kneel. The human fleet that appeared above Tauren Prime was massive. Over 100 warships. The largest single force humanity had yet deployed. They filled the sky like a black curtain, blocking out the sun. The Emperor of Tauren Prime panicked. He sent desperate messages to the human fleet. Begging. Pleading. Promising anything. We will pay reparations. We will give you resources. We will surrender everything. Please spare us. But the humans did not respond. Not with words. They had given their warning months ago. Before the war started. The Emperor had laughed at that warning. Had ignored it. Had ordered the deaths of thousands of human civilians. Now came the price. The bombardment began at dawn. But it was not random destruction. The humans targeted government buildings. Military installations. The Emperor's palace. Naval shipyards. Weapons factories. Every center of power, every symbol of the empire that had attacked Earth. The Emperor tried to flee. His personal ship launched from a hidden spaceport, trying to escape to another system. But human fighters intercepted it within minutes. They disabled the engines and brought it back. The Emperor was captured and put on trial. Not a secret trial. Not a quick execution. A real trial broadcast across the entire galaxy. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. The Emperor was given lawyers and allowed to defend himself. He was found guilty on every charge. Crimes against humanity. Ordering attacks on civilian targets. War crimes. The list went on and on. His sentence was announced before the entire galaxy. Life imprisonment. His empire was dissolved. His government was disbanded. His military was permanently disbanded. In 3 days, an empire that had lasted 10,000 years was erased from the galaxy. Not with wild destruction. Not with genocide. But with cold, calculated justice. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. This was not how wars usually ended. Normally, conquerors destroyed everything. They took slaves. They burned worlds. They ruled with cruelty. But humanity did none of these things. They were not interested in conquest. They were not interested in ruling others. They only wanted justice for the attacks on their people. And once that justice was served, they stopped. One by one, coalition worlds surrendered. Some willingly. Some after seeing what happened to those who resisted. The coalition collapsed completely. Its leaders either imprisoned or fleeing to the edges of known space. Whole civilizations that had joined the attacks on Earth were forced to face the consequences. Some lost their militaries permanently. Others paid massive reparations. All were made to understand the price of their actions. But humanity did not seek to destroy them. Did not try to wipe them out. They simply ensured it could never happen again. Across the galaxy, species that had watched the war in silence now saw the truth. Humanity was not the fragile, reckless species they had believed. They were something far more dangerous. They were patient. They gave warnings. They tried for peace. But when pushed too far, when their people were attacked, they became unstoppable. Relentless. And absolutely merciless to those who deserved it. The war was over. The coalition was gone. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And now, for the first time in months, humanity spoke. A message was sent to the Galactic Council. An invitation. The human delegate would return to the chamber. One final time. The council gathered, trembling. The same delegates who had once mocked the human now sat in terrified silence, waiting to hear what humanity would say. Waiting to learn what came next. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled. Every delegate present. But no one spoke. No one whispered. The massive hall, which once echoed with the voices of proud empires, was now silent as a tomb. They were waiting. Waiting for the human delegate to arrive. Waiting to hear what humanity would demand after their crushing victory. Waiting to learn their fate. Some delegates trembled in their seats. Others stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. These were the same beings who had laughed months ago. Who had mocked Earth's warnings. Who had called humans weak and foolish. Now they sat in terror, knowing they had awakened something terrible. The doors to the chamber opened. The sound echoed like thunder in the silence. Every head turned. Every eye watched. The human delegate walked in. The same man who had stood on that platform months before. The same man who had given the warning that was ignored. He walked slowly, calmly, his footsteps the only sound in the entire chamber. He wore the same simple dark suit. No weapons. No armor. No guards. He was alone. But his presence filled the chamber like a physical weight. He stepped onto the speaking platform in the center of the room. For a long moment he said nothing. He simply stood there, his eyes moving slowly across the chamber, looking at each delegate one by one. Some could not hold his gaze. They looked away ashamed. Others stared back, frozen like prey before a predator. The silence stretched on, heavy and terrible. Finally the human spoke. His voice was calm, steady. But every word carried the weight of absolute authority. "We warned you," he began simply. "We stood in this very chamber and asked for peace. We told you what would happen if you provoked us. If you attacked us. If you tried to take from us what was ours." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You laughed at us. You mocked us. You called us weak. You called us children who did not know our place." His eyes grew harder. "And then you attacked our colonies. You killed our people. You burned our homes. You chained our families and paraded them like animals." No one spoke. No one moved. The shame in the room was almost visible. "We gave you one warning. Just one. But you ignored it." The human's voice remained calm, but now it carried something else. Something cold and final. "And now you have seen the cost of that mistake." He let the silence return for a moment before continuing. "We destroyed your fleets. We broke your empires. We brought justice to those who attacked us. We could have done more. We could have burned your homeworlds. We could have hunted down every last member of the coalition and made them suffer. We had the power. We had the right." The delegates held their breath. Was this it? Was humanity about to declare themselves rulers of the galaxy? Would they demand tribute? Slaves? Territory? "But we did not," the human said, and something shifted in the room. "Because that is not who we are. We did not seek this war. We did not want conquest. We only wanted peace. And justice for those who were murdered." He took a step forward, his eyes sweeping the chamber. "The war is over. The coalition is broken. Justice has been served. And now we offer you all something you did not offer us. A chance for peace." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The human raised his hand and silence returned instantly. "But understand this," he continued, his voice growing harder. "This peace comes with terms. Terms that are not negotiable." The council speaker, the ancient being of stone, leaned forward. His voice was quiet, respectful, nothing like the arrogance he had shown before. "What are your terms, human delegate?" The human pulled out a small device and projected a document into the air above the chamber. Holographic text appeared, written in every major galactic language. First, the human said, "Any species that attacks human territory or human civilians will face the full military might of Earth. There will be no warnings. No negotiations. Only justice." Several delegates nodded quickly. They would not dare attack humanity now. "Second," he continued, "humanity will be granted a permanent seat on this council. With full voting rights and veto power. Never again will our concerns be dismissed or ignored." More nods. No one would dare object. "Third," the human's voice grew colder, "the species that led the coalition attacks will remain under observation. Their militaries will be limited. They will pay reparations to the families of those they killed. And they will issue formal apologies to every human colony they attacked." The delegates from those species bowed their heads in acceptance. They had no choice. They had lost the right to pride. "And finally," the human said, his voice returning to its calm tone, "humanity will share our technology with the galaxy. Our medical advances. Our agricultural methods. Our educational systems. We will help those who wish to improve their worlds. We will trade fairly with those who trade fairly with us. We will be partners in building a better galaxy." Shocked silence filled the chamber. After such a devastating war, after such complete victory, humanity was offering friendship? Partnership? But, the human added, his voice becoming steel, if any species ever again attacks humanity or our allies, if any empire ever again believes we are weak, if anyone ever forgets the lessons of this war, we will remind them. Swiftly, decisively, and without mercy. He paused, letting the warning sink deep into every mind present. We are human. We do not forget. We do not forgive easily. But we can be the best friends you will ever have, or the worst enemy you could ever imagine. The choice is yours. The human delegate turned to leave, then stopped and looked back one final time. One more thing, he said quietly. To the species who fought beside us, who sheltered our refugees, who stood up in this council and spoke against the coalition when it was dangerous to do so. Humanity remembers. We will not forget your courage, your kindness, and we will stand beside you always. With that, he walked away. Down the platform, across the floor, through the doors. And once again he left behind nothing but silence. But this time the silence was different. It was not the silence of fear or shame. It was the silence of understanding, of acceptance, of a galaxy forever changed. The council speaker finally spoke, his ancient voice filled with an emotion that might have been respect. The humans' terms are accepted, he announced. Let it be recorded that on this day humanity took its place among the great powers of the galaxy. Not through conquest but through strength. Not through cruelty but through justice. The vote was unanimous. Not because it had to be but because every delegate understood the truth now. In the days that followed, the galaxy began to rebuild. Human engineers helped repair damaged worlds. Human doctors treated the wounded on both sides. Human teachers shared knowledge freely. Children across 1,000 worlds grew up hearing the story. The story of the day the galaxy attacked humanity. The story of the warnings that were ignored. The story of the storm that followed. Parents told their children the tale in hushed voices, making sure they understood the lesson. Never underestimate those who seem weak, they would say. Never mock those who ask for peace. Never ignore a warning from someone who has the